Welcome to the Possibility Podcast. I'm doing a new format now where not only am I doing the audio recording, but when I can, I'm going to shoot some video for those of you that like to watch versus listen. So you get to pick and choose how you like to consume your content. Today's conversation is all about fear. Don't panic. It's not going to be heavy, but hopefully I can give you some tips, tools, and strategies that will help you recognize when fear is helping you and when fear is hurting you. There are always two voices clamoring in our head. One is the whispering of our soul, and the other is the clamoring of our mind, telling us why we shouldn't be doing this, why we should be afraid. So what I want to talk to you about today is when fear is actually working in your favor and when fear has overstepped its boundaries. So as we start this show, I would like you to lightly reflect on something that you've been putting off because you are afraid. We're not going to talk to that specifically this week, but have that to the side, maybe take a notepad and write it down. And let's look under that. Maybe this conversation will help you either decide to take action because your fears about this particular thing you wanted to do are false, or it's going to maybe allow you to decide, you know what, I'm going to not do this because these fears are real. So now is the time to know when to listen to your head, which is trying to stop you, and when to listen to your heart that wants you to live a life of your best possible self. Fear has saved us in the past. It is why we are here today. It's why you're watching this show or you're listening to me on the podcast. Fear kept our ancestors alive. Our ancestors used to have to look for what could kill them. Hence, our reptilian brain, the part of our brain that's been with us the longest, is the strongest. And our reptilian brain does not go out every morning looking for the roses and the unicorns and the puppies. It goes out looking for what could hurt us. The challenge is our brain cannot tell the difference between a thought and what is real. Your response to a thought is a physical response, whether it's a thought, a false fear, or it is a real fear. You're walking down the street and you feel some footsteps a little too close to you. You're about to get in your car and you sense there's someone around you. Your children are about to step into the street. We better be afraid. So fear has served us really well in the past. It kept our ancestors alive. It's why we're here today. The challenge is that part of our brain, our reptilian brain, is the strongest because it's been with us the longest. So we need to be aware of it. It's never a character judgment. It's not a character flaw when we feel afraid. It's just when we can sit and look at what is under the fear, the thought that triggered the feeling, then we can decide what type of action we want to take. I was listening to a great podcast recently by Rich Roll, and this whole new idea of mood follows action. So our mood, we have this idea of fear. What kind of action do we want to take to either shift our mood, or is it something we need to be aware of and stay in for a little bit longer to stay safe? FEAR, face everything and rise, or forget everything and run. And depending on what it is that's facing us, only you get to choose. However, I really feel that for us to live a life of possibility, we're going to have to feel afraid. There is no way around it. You cannot stretch your dreams. You cannot stretch your idea of who you are in this world without being afraid. Because when we step into the unknown, it is going to cause us to feel fear. I feel, this is not science, this is just me, I feel anxiety and fear are kind of like brother and sister. And sometimes they're so intertwined that we can get them really conflated. We can't separate one from the other. And I love this idea that fear is anxiety plus the unknown. Let me say that again. Fear is anxiety plus the unknown. So we got to kind of separate those two things. A lot of people say, I get so anxious before I go and teach class or before I go and speak, or I'm like, that's a good thing. Having a little bit of anxiety is respect for your audience. It's respect for the people in front of you. It's respect for what it is that you're going to do. The challenge is when that anxiety is not recognized for being a positive and we turn it into almost what's the way I'm looking at it? Almost a reason for us to not show up. So I like this idea that anxiety is excitement without the breath. You know, when you're getting ready to speak, if you shift the lens off who you are onto who you want to serve, if you're going even for a first date, if we shift the lens from worrying about what they're going to think about me to let me just share my light and shine my light on this other human being, it's going to be a great evening, whether or not it leads to a second date. The anxiety we feel when we're stepping into a new job, you know, that's an exciting place to be. We don't know everything. We're going to have to learn new protocols, new systems, meet new people. But when we can look at it from the lens of what can I give versus what can I get? How can I serve versus how are they going to judge me? It can begin to down-regulate that anxiety. Here's the thing. We have two nervous systems, the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. I always got these mixed up when I was doing my exams, because sympathetic to me kind of makes me feel like, oh, it's going to be kind of smooth. Actually, no, sympathetic is our fight, flight, and freeze. And then our parasympathetic system is the one we need to go into when we're kind of digesting our food, we're kind of down regulating, and we need both of these. The challenge is, especially in the world that we live in right now, especially with the 2 years that we've just been through, your brain is exhausted. It has been on fight, flight, or freeze in that sympathetic nervous system for way longer than it was designed to be. Our brain is not designed for chronic stress. It is designed for peak moments of stress, but then that needs to be followed by recovery and rest. Our ancestors had peak moments of anxiety when they're chasing, you know, the food they're going to eat, when they're killing their prey. But then they walk back to their tribe, and that adrenaline, the cortisol, has time to move out of their body. Then they cook their food and they sit around with their elders and they talk and they recover and they rest. Think about the last time you rested. And I need us all to rest. I feel like we're on this slow simmer the whole time. Whenever the ability for us to fully engage in our life is getting dismantled because we're never fully disengaged. We're always partially on our phones. We're partially on our computer, whatever. And I'm guilty of this too. But let's look at when fear is a good thing and when is fear overstepping its boundaries. When do we face everything and rise, or when do we forget everything and run? We cannot have an emotion without a thought. We cannot have an emotion without a thought. When we don't sit long enough, and when we look at fear as a negative and we push it into a box, what we don't own will own us. So again, when we can look under the feeling of the fear to the thought that triggered the fear, then we can decide which actions are going to help us and which actions are going to hurt us. The first thing to recognize is we can't avoid it. They say every emotion actually moves through us in 90 seconds. I'm not sure about that. I have felt moments of extreme, extreme anxiety and fear all like kind of combined. Examples of that are right before I was about to step on to do my first TEDx talk. When I was about to DJ, I'll explain that one in a moment. And also when I arrive in a new place on my travels, I can feel extreme anxiety, but anxiety is different to fear. So let's talk about fear first, and then we can pull away the anxiety portion, because that's a very relevant emotion too. I believe we have two main fears. One is being judged, and two is it not working out. So when we look at the one of being judged, if we want to try something new, like, oh, I haven't done this yet because ... If we really look closely, the procrastination, the reasons of I don't have the time, I'll get to this when I have it all figured out, all of that. If the end game is the real reason I don't want to get started, because then I don't have to put it out in the world and then I don't have to be judged. But as one of my favorite thought leaders, Seth Godin, says, to be remarkable, which you are, means you will be remarked upon. And if you don't stand for something, you're not standing for anything. So to be noticed, to move your gifts into the world, to make a difference, whether that's in your family, your community, the people you work with, the people you manage, you got to stand for something. And when you do that, you're going to be remarked upon, the good and the not so good. And then we can get into trouble when we're really worried about what they may say. I'm going to ask you to really get clear about this right now. This thing that you want to do, it could be as simple as putting a Facebook post out there, which is not simple with the keyboard warriors these days, to going to for a new job, to asking someone out on a date, to maybe traveling the world, whatever it is, to writing a book, doing a podcast, getting your Zoom classes finally up into the world, whatever it is. If you really look under why you're not doing that, can you honestly tell me, I don't know, can you honestly tell me it's not because you're afraid of what they may say? Sit with that for a moment. Can you honestly tell me that the reason you're not getting started in doing something, if you really look far enough down the road, that when you ship this thing, you share this thing, you put this thing out in the world, you're not concerned with how they may think? And here's the thing, you would be, I don't know, maybe you're a narcissist if you never think that way, more narcissism to come. But for most of us as humans, of course we care, because we are born to want to fit in, because that's how we survived. Of course we care what other people say. However, when what other people think stop us from doing what we want to do, there is a problem. So I'll share a very real situation with you. Share my own personal story. So some of you may not. I got involved with a clothing company about 2 years ago. It's not a traditional model. It's nothing I'd ever done before. I've always done the traditional, which is kind of not traditional if you look at it anymore. A company paid me to represent their brand. Reebok, California Walnuts, Gatorade, to name a few. I was very blessed. Those gigs don't come around much anymore. So, we have this idea of being an affiliate. You can be an affiliate for someone, for a course, for a program, for a book. I'm an Amazon affiliate. Then there came a clothing line where the way people get to hear about it is through us personally. I'm an affiliate from this brand. I represent this brand. I love this brand. And then I needed to share that I was getting involved with this brand. I had a Facebook post ready to go, right? Because we're going to meet people where they're at. People are on social media right now. So if I want to share something that I'm doing, whether it's this podcast, whether it's my next book, I go onto social media. I had a Facebook post written. It was pretty good, I got to say. Spent a lot of time thinking about it, and I didn't post it. It was a month. I had that going. I was working behind the scenes, but no one really knew what I was doing. And it doesn't matter whether they like what I'm doing or not, but if they don't know what you're doing, they can't raise their hand and say, yes, Petra, I want to hear more, or no, Petra, thank you very much, that's not for me. If they don't know what we're doing, if they don't know what you're doing, how are you going to change the world? How are you going to make an impact on the world? How are you going to serve your best voice forward? It's rare that everybody's going to love everything we do, but if that thing that you want to do, share. So like I said, I was terrified of what people might think. What might they say? And I love that bumper sticker. So easy to say, so hard to do. What you think of me is none of my business. Oh, if we could truly live our life that way and live it with kindness and make sure that what we're doing is not hurting anybody and is always from a place of integrity, I think we all would be running for president. So then I sat with myself. I'm like, Petra, what is it that's stopping you from doing this? Is it that you don't trust the company? No, I trust the company completely. Do you love what they're doing? I love what they're doing. Do you think you're going to be doing this for a while? Yeah, absolutely. I've said yes, I'm in this for the long game. So what's really stopping you? And when I sat long enough, I didn't put these anxieties into a box. I was like, oh, I'm afraid of what people might think of me. Look, here's the thing. I don't know what people expect of me, because it's not my job to manage your expectations. But I really, in my mind, what was going is like, oh, this is not what people expect Petra to do. That's ridiculous. I have no idea what you expect me to do. And then I did the post, got a ton of likes, got a ton of conversation started, and not one mean person. And maybe, maybe my next post, I will get a mean person. But here's the thing, when you think about what it is you're not doing, and you might say to me, Petra, I'm afraid of what they may say. Now I'm going to ask you this question. Who are they? Who are they? Give me their names, give me their faces, and then give me their phone number so I can call them up. Anyway, no. But think about it. Do you really know who they are? If it's people who love you, they might not necessarily always agree with what you're doing, but they're certainly not going to hate on you. And if they do, you need to let those people go. We don't even know who they are. This is the problem and the power of social media. I have 5,000 people, and when one person unfriends me, I see 4,999. And guess what? I get a hit in my stomach. Someone didn't like what I did. It could have been a bot. Bottom line is, if you don't like what I'm doing, and the more clear I get on my message around women of a certain age and the possibility tour, people are either going to say, yes, I want more of that. Or, you know what, Petra, I kind of liked what you were doing when you were in the fitness world. This isn't really what I want right now. Great. Because then they can find someone that's going to help them be their best selves. Time is short. So the more you can stand up for what you want, the more you can help people, and you can save them time, because they're going to know what it is that you have to offer is something that can help them or not. So think about that. If the fear is what will they say, that's a false fear, and we need to continue on. You need to keep moving into your life of possibility, because there is nothing worse than getting to the end of your life and going, I wish I had lived a life true to my dreams versus a life that other people had expected of me. Let me share that again. This is one of the top 5 regrets of people when they are passing on. I wish I had lived a life true to my dreams versus a life that other people had expected of me. So if that's the first fear, I'm sorry, that's a false fear. Let's get over it. Let's let it go. And just remember, you are here to make a difference. Take the lens off what they may think of you and turn the lens of how you can help serve your work, your ideas, your thoughts, your beauty, your kindness, your generosity out into the world. Because man, it needs more of you. Second fear I often feel has come into play is the fear of what if it doesn't work out. Oh, I understand that. So when I was DJing, when I was writing the book, when I was doing the TED Talk, even when I was traveling, what if it doesn't work out? Here's the other question. What if it does work out? Let's ask better questions. Negativity sticks to us like Velcro. Positivity slides to us like Teflon. What if it does work out? And here's my new thought, because I just did a post on this the other day on my blog page. Like I have a worry of things not getting lost. But now I go to myself, hey, if I don't make it perfectly, if the GPS gets me sidetracked, I'm either going to find my way or it's going to make for a great story. Some of the best stories, some of the best learnings are in those detours. Perfection never teaches us anything. Take the word fail off the table. F-A-I-L, first attempts in learning. I don't believe in failing your way to success. However, if you're not failing on a regular basis, you're not stretching yourself enough. You're not trying new things. I fail valiantly daily. I fail valiantly at trying to speak a different language, at making my way around town, and it's all in the learning. At least I'm trying. F-A-I-L, first attempts in learning. There's a lot of data in the things that don't go well. However, when we look at our life through the lens of black or white, win or loss, success or fail, good or bad, you're going to get into some sticky situations, because much of what we learn is in the gray. And when we look at failure or it not working out perfectly as a negative, guess what we do? One more time, we put it into a box, and what you don't own will own you. However, when we can look at things, let's use the word fail for now, but let's look at the words. Maybe you went for a job interview and you didn't get it. And so in your mind, it was a failure. When we look at these things through the lens of self-judgment, we just don't look at them because it's so uncomfortable. However, when we can look at these things not going perfectly, not going as we had hoped, through the lens of self-inquiry, appreciative inquiry, we can learn a lot. Instead of going, I can't believe I didn't get that job. I can't believe he didn't ask me out on a second date. She didn't ask me out on a second date. I can't believe I didn't get the book deal. I can't believe they didn't like my podcast. I can't, whatever, ... When we can look through the lens of a self-appreciation, appreciative inquiry, that's interesting. I wonder why I didn't get the job. And then we can look back and look at what we did well. Okay, I know I spoke with confidence. I know I showed up. I know I dressed well. What maybe need to be tweaked? Maybe my answers were not quite what they were looking for. Maybe I came in with my rehearsed answers versus what they wanted to hear. And what needs to be thrown out? Maybe you just weren't the right fit, for nothing to do with your age or demographic or any of that. We were just not a right fit. And if we really look carefully at the questions they were asking us in that job interview, we might not have been happy in that job anyway. So it might have been a blessing. But when we can look at things that don't go perfectly, we don't have the win at the end that we had hoped, through the lens of appreciative inquiry, we get to keep what worked well. We get to tweak the things that maybe didn't go quite as we had hoped. And some of that we might just leave in the past. And then we reassess, we reapply, and we try again. And then we reassess, we reapply, and we try again. And that's how the circle of confidence versus the slide of fear gets built. We also need to separate fear and anxiety, because it also can be a teacher. Procrastination, people often go to me, well, am I procrastinating or am I percolating? And sometimes when we can look at what we're doing, what we want to share through the lens of self-appreciation versus judgment, there may be times that my fear is very valid. I'll give you a quick DJ story and then I'll let you go, because the world is waiting for you and I know you're ready. So when I was learning to DJ, I had a big event planned. It was on the books. It was very public. It was a year out from when I was planning, when I had mentioned to the world I wanted to DJ. And I had done a lot of work, but I hadn't done enough work. And so when I went down to meet with my mentor a couple of weeks prior to this big event, he let me know very kindly and very firmly that I hadn't been practicing DJing. I had been practicing how to create and curate a perfect playlist. And here's what happens when you try to be perfect in DJing: it leaves no room for a conversation with the dance floor. If I come in with a playlist and that's all I know how to play, this song after that song, this beat matches with that beat, this moment goes with that moment, and if it doesn't respond or it doesn't resonate with the audience, they call it the parting of the Red Seas. When your dance floor just clears out, what am I going to do? Am I going to stay playing the next song because that's the only song I know how to mix into? So I had a pretty OMG moment when my dear mentor, who I thought was going to just sing my praises, hit the decks, stopped me mixing two songs. He goes, okay, Petra, mix that a separate way. Mix that a different way. And I couldn't. Because all I had done, I hadn't been practicing DJing for the past 6 months. I've been practicing how to curate a perfect playlist. And in that moment, I felt terrified. But because I needed to do a lot of work, there was a lot I needed to do. There was a gap between how I needed to show up in 2 weeks and where I was in that moment. But then I got to listen to my fear. I could have done two things. And trust me, I was really close to saying, Mike, you need to DJ this set, because I did not know. But then I did know I would show up and I would do the work. And for the next 2 weeks, I practiced differently. I didn't have the curated set. I practiced in front of friends. I mixed this into that and I mixed that into this. And we did have a plan. The first hour was a pre-mix set. It was like cocktail hour, like Buddha bar-esque. So the first hour I'd gotten a set that I wasn't going to change. And it would allow me to read the room, see where the toes were tapping, see what the heads were nodding. But then I just had to listen to the dance floor and be in the moment. Because a curated playlist would have not allowed me to be in the moment. I would have already been at the end of the night. Never a good relationship to have with you and your guests. So I did the work, and I used that fear to propel me to take action so I could change that fear into excitement. And I showed up 2 weeks later. Let me tell you guys, there is nothing more scary than seeing an empty dance floor and knowing you're going to have 500 people, 450 of them who know you. And yeah, my ego, I had a bit of an ego on that one. And when the doors open, I see people coming in, they're giving me the thumbs up. They're so excited. Here's Petra DJing. And then it went great until it didn't. I put a song on that I was convinced was going to, light up the dance floor, and it was the Parting of the Red Seas. And then thank goodness, because of the kindness of my mentor who told me, this is not a curated playlist. This is being in the moment. Have a dialogue with your audience. I was like, let me put this one on. Didn't really fill up the dance floor. Let me go over here. Let me pull this song. I wasn't panicking because I'd practiced. I put on this song that I was not sure was going to work. It was like this deep new house disco remix, and the floor was packed. And then for the next 30 minutes, guys, I cannot tell you what song I put on my turntable, on my deck, because I was listening to the audience. I wasn't listening to my fear. And even my mentor who had come to support me was looking at me like, I had no idea this crowd would like this kind of music. And we had this moment across the dance floor together that was just absolutely so special. And for the next 4 hours, the dance floor told me what they wanted, and we danced. And there is nothing more rewarding than coming to midnight, your audience going, one more song, because they didn't want the dance to end. And of course, I had to play one more song. Everybody dance now. Dun, 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 dun. And that, my friend, is what happens when we can look at what's sitting under the fear. Is this something that's going to hurt us, or is this something that's going to help us? There is a lot to be talked about with fear and anxiety, but when we can start looking at it for what it is. And I want to end this show with you asking yourself, as you look forward to the things that you want to do, and when you feel afraid about the things that it is that you want to do, ask yourself this: where in my life is fear overstepping its boundaries? Where in my life is fear overstepping its boundaries? Fear is the cheapest living room in the house, as Hafiz says. I would like to see you living in better conditions. Let's up-level our mindset. Let's up-level our belief in who we are. Let's believe it to be true, and then meet yourself there. And I am here with you every step of the way. I'm excited to see what you bring into this world. Now is your time. Shine your light. And then my last parting thought is actually from Quincy Jones, when he was talking about Whitney Houston and her fear of not always leveling up to what people's expectations were of her. And those were some pretty high standards. Do not let the critics go to your heart, and never let the praise go to your head.